Hello and welcome to a new episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is Deck Break It Down. Wiki wiki wiki. Today's episode is all about my Landfall Deck, Aesi Tyrant of Gyre Strait. It's a 5/5 that costs 6 mana, a blue, a green, and 4 others. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and the most important part, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. I really love this deck. It's not like it's a super win-heavy deck, like most of my decks aren't, but the point being is it's an incredibly fun deck to play. It can get kind of crazy and get close to winning, and has won on occasion, because there are two win cons in here that are specific, like big burst win cons. One is an actual infinite combo. The other is just like a mass stompy kind of win con, but it's just a lot of interactions because it's one of the only decks I have that actually takes a long time to play in terms of the turns, because most of my decks are play a land, maybe play a spell past turn, and if I ramp well enough, I can play 2 or 3 spells on turn. There's so much interaction once the landfall starts triggering that it's a lot to keep up with, and the board state gets real big real fast in terms of land and a lot of stuff happening. But it can be, I'm sure from the other perspective, it's kind of frustrating from anyone playing against it, because it's like a good solid 6-minute turn where I'm just like, I play this, I draw a land, I play it, and then I got a ton of land, maybe a couple extra creatures on the field, but it's not like I'm magically closer to winning or whatever. So let's go ahead and jump into how it's divided and what the idea behind the deck is. First off, we'll start with the easy stuff. There are only 3 artifacts in the entire deck. It's just my standards of Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Bonder's Ornament. I love those 3. I put them in every deck. I think they're pretty much staples. But you can see that because I'm not even focusing on artifact ramp, that this deck doesn't need it. Because first of all, it's in green, so you can have actual ramp spells. So you don't have to worry about going hard in the artifacts where it's like, oh, Thran Dynamo, and the other, the one that comes in that taps for 2 but comes in tapped, and all that other stuff. You don't need to worry about that. Then with instant spells up here, we have 6 of them. Now we have our normal ones where it's like Aetherize to try and buy some time, and a lot of these instants are card draw instants. Like put an extra land from your hand on the battlefield, draw a card, put your, discard a land, sacrifice a land rather, get more, that kind of stuff, and a couple answers. So again, and this might be a definite default of the deck, not a default, sorry, I'm just talking stupid. A deficit of the deck is that it doesn't have a lot of answers, and I think looking at these numbers as I broke them down, I realized there's probably a little wiggle room in the number of lands I have, that I could cut a couple lands to put in more answers or something like that. Because the deck based on the commander alone has plenty of card draw. It's just about, answers. Sorry, this particular stand for my phone does tend to wiggle a lot, and it's a little top heavy, and I'm kind of holding it down so it doesn't tip over. Next up, we have enchantments. We have 6 enchantments as well. We got some really good ones, also beautiful full arts, but Exploration, where you can play an extra land. Burgeoning, which is a big one because whenever your opponent plays a land, you can play a land. And then Druid class, which is fantastic for landfall decks. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1. And then if you can up it to level 2, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. And then, more life gain, stuff like that. Court of Bounty. Unnatural Growth, I like because there are a couple big creatures in here. And as you'll see, one of the win cons, again, like I said, is about a lot of creatures. So this can help also give those creatures, more power, because it doubles the power and toughness of every creature I control at the beginning of each upkeep, or each combat, not just my combat, which is nice. All right, then we've got sorceries, and this is where the first win con comes in. First of all, obviously, you're going to have this is going to be very heavy in terms of mana ramp. So you got Cultivate, you got Kadama's Reach, Explore, Urban Evolution, Rampant Growth, like all of them, right? All the big ones. And then the possible win con is Sylvan Awakening. It's only cost 3, but until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creatures with reach indestructible, which is huge, and haste. They're still lands. So what that means is this is a great late game card. Even though it only costs 3, the idea is to sit on this or keep it or draw it mid-game when after all the craziness has gone on and maybe there's been a board wipe or two, but lo and behold, I have 20 or more lands on the field and it's turn 9 or turn 6 even or turn 7, and I've got teens or whatever, drop Sylvan Awakening, they're all 2/2s. If I'm lucky enough to even have an Unnatural Growth out, now they're 4/4s, well, 2/2s with Double Strike, essentially. Or no, it does double the, sorry, so it becomes 4/4s, and now I've literally got, 10, 15, 20, 30 4/4s that I can just swing the board and kill 1 or 2 players, ideally. And I can still tap them for mana for other, for to play Unnatural Growth or something if I needed to at that moment. Ideally, you want to have that already on the battlefield, obviously, and not waste 5 possible creatures. But that's your first main win con. Oops, sorry. Then the big number, this giant stack right here, is it is 44 lands. That's why I'm saying I didn't realize it was that high myself until I really sat down and counted just now. I can probably cut 2 or 3 or 4 lands out of there and put in some more answers or some maybe a better creature or 2. I'll have to look up some ideas and some possibilities. But again, the deck doesn't need landfall or doesn't need card draw as long as I can get the commander out and have a couple lands in my hand and a ramp spell of some kind. Any of these ones I've been showing you, it just starts to basically cascade into land, into land, into land. It's fantastic. I love it. It gets so crazy. One of the last times I played this deck, it was funny because it was kind of frustrating my friends in a fun way. Like, they were laughing. But it was like I just kept playing lands and drawing cards and playing another land and drawing another card. But I wasn't doing anything because I wasn't getting any creatures. I was just getting lands and landfall and land trigger cards. So it's like, oh, I play a land, so my Ayisi says I get to draw a card. Cool, I draw a card, it's a ramp spell, I play it, then play the lands, and I draw cards because lands came in, there are more lands, so I play them. And it wasn't getting me to either of the 2 win cons, which was unfortunate. And I don't believe I won that game, of course. But that was just a real weird fluke of the way the lands happened to fall, and with shuffling the deck constantly, it just happened to keep shuffling away the cards I needed. So finally, we come to creatures, and there are 32 creatures in this deck. So obviously, we've got landfall, happy ones, Oracle of Maldai, that's an obvious inclusion, and Scoot Swarm. I mean, how do you not have that in a landfall deck, right? That's going to go crazy. And then we've got all of the landfall creatures. That makes sense. Like, I personally am not a huge fan of the landfall triggers where it's like till end of turn, because yes, I can play a handful of lands on one turn. If I'm really lucky, it can be like 4, 5, 6 maybe. But that's only 6 buffs and then it goes away. Like, I would much rather have things like Nectar Pot where it's like, cool, I gain life off of every one. And, Lotus Cobra, which gets me another mana that I can use to cast spells. Territorial Scythecap, excellent one where it gets +1/+1 every time. And it has Trample. 2 turns of, like, really good ramping. He's huge, and with Trample, it's amazing. Rune Crab, you're milling your opponents as you're doing it. You're milling them, each opponent mills 3. I play 3 or 4 lands in a turn. That's a big chunk of their library. Same here, more life gain, and then, creating a 1/1 spear green sapperling. It's only a 1/1, but like I said, a couple turns, I've got a little army of them. And then this brings us to the real win con of the deck, the main win con. And then, of course, we have like a lot of just creatures that allow us to play more lands on our turn. A ton of those, pretty much everyone. But this is the infinite combo with damage. We've got Ley Weaver, Prodigal Sorcerer, and Aisha, Soul of the Wild. So what they do is, first and foremost, Aisha is a big... Now, unfortunately, none of them have haste, so you got to be real careful how you play them. You got to kind of ideally play like these 2 little guys first and kind of get them on the field and have them keep your head down and make people like, oh yeah, she can untap 2 target lands. That makes sense for a landfall deck. He can deal 1 damage. Well, it's weird that that's in there. It doesn't deal with land, but whatever. They kind of get ignored. But as I said, that's what they do. Prodigal Sorcerer, he tap him and deal 1 damage to target creature or player. That's the big thing. And Ley Weaver, you can tap her to untap 2 target lands. Cool. Aisha is the big part of that. When you drop her, the combo's able to work. Her power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Great. That's going to be a big number, but no trample. Because non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. That means when these hits the ground, every single creature in the deck non-tokens becomes a forest in addition to. It's a forest land in addition to. Well, she says you can tap her to untap 2 target lands. He says you tap him to deal 1 damage, right? You can see where this is going. So when all 3 pieces are on the field and nobody has summoning sickness, you go ahead and tap him to deal 1 damage to the opponent directly in front of you. Then you tap her, that allows you to untap 2 target lands. Well, that trigger goes in a stack. These are technically 2 forest lands, so you untap both of them. And then ping somebody for 1. Tap this to untap both of them. Ping somebody for 1. Untap, tap, boom. And you just do this infinitely until everyone on the table is dead. There's no way, unless you have someone that can instant speed, bounce, or destroy any of the 3 creatures, which is certainly not hard to do. But that's the only way to stop it. Once it starts, everyone at the table is dead except for you. And that's one of the few types of infinite combos that I really kind of, I won't say respect, but kind of how I respect. It's like, that's why it's in my deck and I'm okay with it, because at least if the infinite combo starts, it wins. As opposed to the infinite combos that are like, I make infinite mana and infinite card draw, and I get to play my entire deck and see if I can find a win con. So we'll just, assume it works because it'll take half an hour for me to play it out. And then everyone's like, okay, fine. It's like, no. But anyway, that's the not hidden, but, core win con of the deck. And with the massive amount of land ramp, it should, theoretically, as I said, it didn't do this last time, but it should draw into those 3 cards relatively quickly and allowing you to play them in the right order. And with so much mana that, again, ideally what you can do is you play something like Ley Weaver and then, Oracle of Moldai. Well, she's going to be the bigger target. They're going to go after Oracle of Moldai or one of the giant 6/6 creatures I have or something, or even like the commander. They'll go after that with removal, ignore Ley Weaver and Prodigal Sorcerer because they're like a 2/2 and a 1/1. Then suddenly next turn you drop Aisha and it's like game over. But there you have it. That is the technical breakdown of my Landfall deck. I say this a lot, but I do have, 20-some decks, so I can have more than one favorite. And this is one of my favorites. It's just a lot of fun to play. I'm proud of it that it wasn't like... I built it off of the Landfall cards I had and what made sense in all of my ramp spells that I had laying around. Obviously, I was looking at things. I think, online, I found the Aisha combo. I think it was even like Star City's Instagram page or something. Had a combo of the day, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Those colors would go in my Landfall deck. So I don't think I looked up much, if anything, to build this deck. It was just what I had, and what I had works, and it's just fun to play. So let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for cards you think should go in this deck, or, and if you've made Landfall decks of your own, how did you build them? Thanks for watching. I hope you check out some of my other stuff. I hope you hit the subscribe button, maybe like a video or 2, and I will see you next time.